What's up, fungal associates? Bienvenidos. Completely Arbortrary.
Very good accent, Alex.
The podcast about trees and other related topics. I am Alex Crowson. I'm one of your hosts, and of course, over there on the great green couch, on the GGC, we got a CC, a Casey Clapp.
That's me. Hi. Hey there, GGC. Hey there, AC.
Wow, it's like Blue's Clues in here.
Yes.
You're talking to the couch.
This is fun.
Wow. I guess that's more Pee-wee's Playhouse territory. There's literally a talking chair in that show.
Oh, yeah, there is. Yeah, I guess I kind of remember that, but I never really watched it. Never got into that show.
Yeah, same.
As a child.
My friend Grant is hilariously, vehemently anti-Pee-wee.
Good. Okay. So am I. Like culturally speaking, like even as a kid, it's just like Pokemon. Everyone was all about it. And I'm like, that's dumb.
Interesting.
Okay.
You know, it started as a
Grant.
stage show, and it was kind of lewd.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I guess now looking back, I can totally get that.
There's a scene where...
Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Yeah,
Okay,
you know
now
what
we
that
get it.
means.
Yeah.
There's a scene where Pee-wee he puts a little mirror on his shoe and slides it up under a woman's skirt.
What?
And she catches him and he goes, "I was trying to see your underwear." And she goes, "Joke's on you. I'm not wearing any underwear." And Pee-wee's all like put out.
Oh, jeez.
Because he's not a pervert. He just wanted to do that because it's a sneaky little fun thing.
Oh, yeah, because he's not a pervert.
Yeah.
Oh, that's horrible.
R.I.P. Casey, we're talking rubber today.
Yes, we are.
This episode is my idea.
Okay, Alex.
I believe so.
Okay, buddy.
Am I wrong?
No, you're totally right.
Okay.
The way you did that was funny to me. So
Yeah.
I needed to respond in kind.
I see. Well, we of course are going to talk all about the rubber, and we have some exciting discussions to have. But did you know, Casey, that our podcast is supported entirely by our dearest fungal associates?
I did know this, Alex. I know it because I think about it every day. I wake up in the morning, I turn over on my pillow, and I say, "Thank you, fungal associates."
If you want to become a premium member of this podcast and support the podcast and get cool things in return, you can go to arbortrarypod.supercast.com. That is ARBORTRARY pod.supercast.com. We have many different options. You can even gift a subscription to a loved one for the tree lover in your life.
Exactly, which, to be very clear, is almost everyone in your life. So you can get this for anyone.
Whether they know it or not. Well, Casey, we are going to talk about rubber after a quick break. We'll be right back with Completely Arbortrary. Welcome back to Completely Arbortrary. Today we're talking rubber. Scientific name?
Scientific name. Well, I think I want your opinion on this.
Oh, wow.
It is spelled Castilla, elastica.
Well, I think I would say Castilla.
Okay.
Even though in Spanish it would be Castilla.
Exactly. Yes, and same thing in French. Like the two L's make an E sound.
Yeah.
So every time I read it, I'm like, Castilla, elastica.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Well, Casey, let's imagine that you and I are transported through time, although, and I'll get to this, we don't necessarily have to be.
No.
And we come across a ball court with some spirited players bumping a rubber ball between their hips.
Just honestly, I have problems with this. We'll talk about it later.
Oh, great. And I say, hey, what's that made out of? And of course, I don't speak Aztecan.
Yeah.
But it's rubber, Casey, and let's ID this tree.
All right, so this is a pretty lovely tree. It's another tropical tree, just like last week.
Great.
But this one grows not as a early succession plant. This is more of a forest tree that grows and kind of hangs around for a little while. It does not take shade very well, which is very common for a lot of these plants, but it does grow and kind of has some staying power, more or less. Okay. But a lot of times you wouldn't know that because it tends to be cut down quickly because as it gets older, it stops producing as much of the actual latex that is what becomes rubber.
The sweet nectar.
Yes. So I read around it and they're like, oh, well, it gets to about 24 inches diameter. I'm like, how do you guys say that? Like, it's a problem I've had with other things elsewhere. But essentially, like, the tree will keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So I have a feeling that they only see a certain size because it's often cut down before it gets any bigger than about 2 feet.
I see. So this could get 6 feet wide, but we wouldn't know because we cut it down when it's outlived its usefulness.
Theoretically, or maybe they just will fall over and decay, but I haven't heard that it's like not very decay resistant.
Well, in a vacuum, any tree could grow infinitely
continually, in every direction. So who knows? But generally speaking, it gets about 100 feet tall.
Okay.
It's got bark that is pleasantly, in my opinion, somewhat like smooth when it's young, but as it gets older, it kind of gets apparently a little bit rougher. But I have not seen anything. They say this, and I've seen like pictures of it where it looks like it kind of gets a little furrowed, a little like kind of rough, scaly on the outside.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I don't see it in any other photos, like on iNaturalist or something like that. It appears to be mostly smooth bark covered in nice patches of lichen for most of the time.
Oh, okay. It's pretty utility.
Yeah, it's pretty utility bark. Very much what you'd expect for a tropical tree. And it grows with a single stem that usually kind of curls around with a big bushy canopy.
Wow.
Filled with these wonderfully they're just wonderful leaves, but they're very generic looking leaves. Except for 2 things.
They're like houseplant leaves.
Yes,
I
exactly.
think they look like fig leaves.
Totally. Which I should make a quick note, Alex.
Fig. Excuse me. No. Wait, no, they look like rubber leaves.
Yes,
rubber plant leaves, which is a common houseplant.
Precisely, which is not the one we're talking about. That is known as Ficus elastica.
Ficus.
Which is a fig. It's the houseplant fig. I have one myself.
So I was kind of accidentally correct.
You were spot on, yes.
Cool.
In fact, there are 4 other things that we call, actually there's dozens of other things that we call a rubber tree. There is Hevea brasiliensis.
Yes.
That one is the one that's used today most commonly and commercially.
For latex?
For latex, yeah. Not the one we're talking about. It's also called the para rubber tree, or para. There's the accents at the last A. How would you say that?
How does it spell?
P-A-R-A.
Para.
Para.
Or para.
Is the para
Not a rolled
tree.
R, sorry.
Para rubber tree.
Para.
I am still a little congested, so every time I do something, it sounds really goofy in my head. Anyway, it's also not that one. It is not Ficus elastica. It is also not the hardy rubber tree, which is Eucomia ulmoides, which you can actually find right here in Portland.
Eucomia.
Yeah, and the best way to ID that one is you rip the leaves apart sideways, and there's little bits of elastic-looking latex between them.
Well, like a cheese pole.
Exactly. That's exactly right. It's like those old craft commercials, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's wonderful. It's a beautiful tree, very important, and somewhat interesting. I think we should cover that tree later.
Sounds
just
good.
putting that plug in.
Okay.
And it's also not another tree that's in the genus Paliquium. So anyway, if you're ever looking up any other kind of tree and you're thinking, a rubber tree, yes, there are 10,000 of them.
Okay.
We'll talk about that in a little bit, though. This tree, ours in particular, is not the fig, and so its leaves are not quite as shiny and really dark green. They're a little bit longer, a little bit skinnier, but they are a lighter shade of green, and they have little orange hairs all over them and all over the young twigs as well. So they're really kind of unique in that way, and they have these tiny little tufts of hairs at the edge of their leaves, and they are usually perfectly like alternately arranged left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right.
Okay.
So you get this very like almost a pinnately compound leaf look to them.
Okay.
Even though they're definitely their own leaves, they're not compound or split leaflets, anything like that.
On a macro kind of scale.
Exactly.
Okay.
But it's very much not a plant that grows things in a spiral fashion, kind of as the stem grows up, leaves come out on all sides. This is more that the branch comes out and you have leaves that lay perfectly horizontal or kind of droop down a little bit.
Lovely.
So this is it creates this big bushy, very green canopy with these lovely leaves.
Great.
Now, I'm a little bit confused with this plant. I've heard that the flowers sometimes are female, sometimes are male, sometimes it's on different trees, sometimes they're all on the same tree.
Okay.
Yet they look like these very strange kind of like fans. And they're in the Moraceae, which means they're also related to figs and everything in that family. So that is the mulberry family.
Okay.
So their flowers like look, it's hard to describe. They almost look like little fans that pop out. But then the fans themselves, it's all very fleshy. So they kind of pop up left and right and look like this little fan, but then that fan will split open to have all the flowers there. So it looks actually a lot like a fig flower as well.
Interesting.
Except imagine that you have a little fig that then splits open so that the flowers are very obviously kind of presented.
Okay.
It's very strange, but they will be chock full of all these either male flowers or female flowers, and then the little fruit on the inside, when it gets developed, will be these little kind of red dots, these bumps inside a similar structure. So it looks almost like there's a is that a dragon fruit? I think it might be. There's like another big tropical fruit that has like a bunch of little kind of pyramidal bumps on it.
Yeah, that's dragon fruit.
Okay, it's like that, but like miniaturized.
Cool.
It's really interesting, yeah. And they're apparently edible, and they taste a little sweet, but I don't think anyone's really all about them.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if in a pinch,
I think you can get into it.
Lost in the jungle.
Yeah, see those
ahead.
delicious little fruit? Go ahead, eat that one up. So it's a really curious little plant, but nothing about it is like, whoa, holy, crazy, wow. Like the plant itself, pretty normal.
It's modest.
It's modest in every regard.
Because its true talent cannot be seen with the naked eye.
No, not unless you etch into the bark of this tree.
We'll be right back. I'm just kidding.
We're right back. Yeah, we need more cliffhangers in this show.
We really do. We need more ad breaks, is what you're saying.
Sorry, people. No, we're not going back to that other thing that we did. I'm not doing that.
Hey, man, you live and learn.
You live and you learn.
Well, yes, Casey, and what is that
Exactly
secret
right.
gem, that hidden talent?
It is latex.
Yeah.
It is the classic condom rubber.
Thank you.
You're welcome, everyone.
They make other things out of latex, like
Not to my knowledge.
oh shit.
Uh-oh.
It might just be condoms.
It might just be condoms.
Sex lingerie.
No, you're right. They make all sorts of stuff. Bouncy balls is a very good example.
Lube.
Other balls that do bounce.
Yes.
With the lube, probably.
With lube? You got to lube up your bouncy balls.
Lube them up, and you'll never be able to catch them.
Oh my God.
Sorry, it was a
What
little
a fun
pantomime.
game.
I know. Try to catch the lubed up bouncy ball. That would be a game. Yeah, so they...
And you won't believe how you score points.
Wait, is this Pee Wee Herman's Playhouse when it was still on stage? So this tree is one of the original OG trees that created latex.
Yeah.
Now, I say original and one of because there were actually a lot. Like I said, there's dozens of trees that we call a rubber tree that grow across the tropics.
Sure, across the world. You also-
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. All the tropics across the entire world.
Great.
So some are native over to the Malay Peninsula and like islands like Borneo and that kind of area. Then there's also some that are just essentially that entire band of the tropical world.
Mm-hmm.
And the Americas have kind of a unique number of these. And right now, like I said, Hevia brasiliensis is the one that really has eclipsed our tree here,
Okay.
our rubber tree. But it is what was used up to like 4,000 years ago.
Wow.
And I don't know if it was particularly this tree was just everywhere or if these people are the ones who kind of first initially found it in the kind of southern Mexico, Central America, northern South American area.
You said southern with a very southern accent.
Oh, did I? I didn't mean to. Excuse me.
In the southern...
Southern Mexico. But it's so they would etch into this tree and it produces this white latex.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about this
Now, this is
that,
effectively like sap, right? Oh, sorry.
No.
Casey.
Actually, no, that's perfect, Alex.
Okay.
I was just going to explain that.
Oh,
It is
great.
not like sap.
Fabulous.
So sap is known as being the stuff that moves in the xylem.
Right.
So that is what the tree is essentially dissolving, taking up water and dissolved nutrients. They put it into this xylem system, and then it flows out throughout the tree from basically the bottom up.
Okay.
That is sap.
Mm-hmm.
That is not the same stuff as the photosynthetic material that gets pushed down from the leaves. That is in the phloem.
Yeah.
And that comes down from the leaves to the rest of the tree, and they all kind of move around through gradients. Latex is produced by leticifers.
Wow.
Is that not a great term?
Maybe the first time I've heard this word, and I hope it has something to do with Lucifer.
It does, because latex is for condoms, and that's for the devil, Alex.
That's the devil's game.
It's the devil's game. Everyone knows this. No, I'm not sure, honestly, if it does have to do with Lucifer, but let's think that it does. Leticifers. No, so these are leticifers. So they make the latex.
Okay.
And these are individual cells that are only designed to do this. And they essentially, a latex is this really interesting kind of plant material that's in 10%, like 12,500 species have this.
Wow.
So 10% are able to make it. The chemical composition's very different across everything, but rubber trees make it, and it's very white usually. Sometimes it can be a little bit off-colored, yellow or brownish. But for the most part, it's made in these particular cells, and when those cells are ruptured, then it just oozes out from them.
Okay.
And there's often these long, like many centimeter long cells that are filled with it. But there's also this kind of question about, does a cell make it and then kind of rupture itself, and then the latex gets kind of filled up all this space in between the cells? Then as soon as an injury happens, it just exudes from everywhere.
Interesting.
Or if these cells are specifically designed to basically hold it there, and if something happens, release it.
Right.
So it might be a little bit of both. It also changes, I think, per species.
Okay.
But so what these people did years and years ago is they would cut into this tree. They would see this white latex that came from it. As soon as it would come from it, they're like, oh my gosh, and they would collect it. And then if they just let it sit there, it kind of coagulates in the sun.
Sure.
And becomes kind of hard.
Okay.
But it doesn't get like rock hard.
Right.
It just becomes kind of harder, more resilient.
Very kind of rubbery.
Rubbery indeed, Alex. But they did notice it's kind of brittle. So when it dries, you can't really like use it for anything. And if you bend it, it'll usually just kind of snaps.
Sure. Kind of flake apart or something.
Yeah, exactly. So what they ended up doing is they found another plant that produces a similar kind of latex, which is called the moonflower, which is Opomia alba.
Wow.
And it is a morning glory, which we've seen. There's a bunch that grow here in the Pacific Northwest. They're invasive, though, at least one species. But this is a species that grows down the same region. And it is a tiny little flower that grows up on this long vine. And if you clip the vine or you rip a leaf or something, it also produces this white latex.
Wow.
They combined the two
God.
They ended up creating what essentially is called vulcanization.
Wow.
Which I love. It has nothing to do with the two cool things, which is the Vulcans of Star Trek and volcanoes.
Right. That's too bad.
It is. It's very much too bad, right? It's like, well, you guys have such a great word, but really it's just heating up and adding sulfur to this latex.
Well, that's not unrelated to volcanoes.
It's not really.
Sulfur and heat.
I guess
Come on.
fine, but I don't know.
It's
I want
cool.
to be like, no, in order to get rubber, you have to take this tree, throw it into the volcano, and then scoop out the stuff that you find.
Be fucking cool.
That would be way cooler. It'd be like the Lord of the Rings every single time you make a tire.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Okay, so they combine these two lateces.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that it produced a rubber that is not only firm, but strong.
Exactly. Cool. That's precisely it. So it became a more usable thing.
Great.
And they would make it into shoes. They would make it into little bouncy balls. They'd make it into mats, all sorts of stuff.
Cool.
Yeah. And this was 4,000 years ago they figured these things out.
Man, I love humans sometimes.
Yeah. And you know what? If you Google, when did we end up actually figuring this stuff out? It'll probably take you back to Charles Goodyear. You know who that is?
This is the whitest name I've ever heard. Who is this?
Yeah. Well, you might recognize Goodyear from the blimp.
Oh, wow. The tire company.
The tire company. This is the guy who initially figured out what we now call today vulcanization.
Wow.
According to most sources. But I
Not
found...
the indigenous people of Mexico.
Exactly. But that's exactly what I was just going to say. In 1999, there is a study that came out from these researchers at MIT. The researchers are Dorothy Holzer, Sandra Burkett, and Michael Tarkanian.
Okay.
And those folks, back in the late 90s, were doing research on the same exact thing, and they were one of the guys. He was looking at this ball game that you specifically said, I want to talk about this ball game.
Yes.
Let's talk about that tree, which is why we're not talking about the other Havia trees, the other different kinds of rubber tree.
That's right.
Those are used today. Those are used in the vulcanization process that Goodyear figured out in like the 1839 or something like that. So he figured that out. He gets all the credit for a modern day. And these folks were like, no, actually, we're pretty positive that in order to get the ball the way that we know they got the ball, they had to have figured out the essential same idea of vulcanization, but these Colombian Central Americans were like, we're just going to mix these two plants together and heat it up a little bit. And now we have this really cool thing.
And then Goodyear was like, and it's called vulcanation. And then just started patting himself on the back.
No, I didn't even think he knew anything about these people or about this game or about anything. He was just trying to figure out how to make rubber last a little bit more.
Gotcha.
Because they would put it on car tires back in this is like the 1850s. So we use it all over the time, or 1840s, excuse me. We'd use it. But it would like get really hot and it would start to pick up stuff along the road. Then it would pop the tire. So they're like, okay, this is not working.
Like gum on your shoe or something.
Exactly. Imagine having an entire like car wheel made of gum in a literal sense.
Melting on the hot pavement.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Funny.
So it would pick up shit, it would pop the tire, and it would be useless. So they're like, we got to think of something better. So he started throwing in all these different chemicals and heating them up. And legend has it, classically, it dropped on a hot frying pan. And he's like, whoa! But that's not confirmed. I don't know if he was that
So many inventions
silly.
happen that way.
Yeah. So I think that he was working particularly hard and figured this out.
Gotcha. Oh, no, I cut my potatoes too thin and accidentally invented the potato chip.
Oh, whoops. It's like, yeah, okay, sure. So
okay, interesting.
Yeah, so that is the modern day thing. But like I said, these folks said, no, they did. They figured it out for this ball game in particular.
That's right, Casey.
Which I'm very curious to know because you specifically were like, hey, I want to talk about this ball game.
This might be the only sport I was genuinely interested in.
It's because this sport also comes with ritual sacrifice.
It sure does, and we'll talk about that
after these messages.
Man, we're going to make so much money.
Alex, hot mic.
Hot shit. Okay, Casey, let's talk about the Mesoamerican ball game.
Yeah, so I did a little bit of research on this, Alex, just because, I'm curious. I'm a curious guy.
Okay.
It's like way more involved than I ever thought it was with their like culture.
Yes.
It's not just like soccer, or football.
No, it's not just like a recreation.
Yeah.
It is so much more. Well, let's start from the top, Case. Alex did research.
What? This is such a script flipped.
So the Mesoamerican ball game is not called the Mesoamerican ball game. That's what we call today. It's sort of a blanket term for many Mesoamerican ball games that each have their own name. It's been played for over 3,000 years.
Yeah.
Which is just mind-boggling. World's oldest game, I suppose, that is still played today.
No, chess.
3,000 years by cultures in modern-day Mexico, all the way back to the Olmecs, sort of the first big civilization in Mexico. The Maya, Zapotecs, Mixtecs, Aztecs, lots of other smaller names. And then each of those had their own name for this game. But the game, remarkably similar to its ancestor game.
Yeah. Now, I heard that it was played all the way up in some form or fashion into like southern Arizona.
Wow.
Isn't that wild?
That's crazy.
You just don't think about it as being such a continuous culture that kind of fades. But like corn was grown up in Massachusetts and it was developed by the native peoples in Central America.
Right.
So
when something is popular.
Exactly. It's going to spread like wildfire.
Yeah, it sure does. The game it was, in its history, sort of destroyed by the Spanish invasion. But there are over 1,000 ball court ruins that we found.
Really?
Yep. And some of the earliest are date from like 1600 BCE.
Wow.
Pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's almost 4,000 years ago. That's just such an incredible amount of time.
And we'll talk about the people who are keeping it alive today a little bit later, but it is not a dead game by any means. Maybe some of the ritual around it.
Okay, so there's a little bit of change.
It's been a rule change over the last few thousand years.
Today we call it Hunger Game.
So let's talk about the court that it's played on.
Okay.
It's played on a court, I would say roughly the size of a basketball court, maybe a little bit bigger, a little longer and a little more narrow.
Okay.
But this varied from culture to culture and even from city to city. So you have this long court. It's in the shape of a capital I.
Okay.
So it's got a main stem.
Sans serif?
Correct. Sans serif, a capital I, Casey.
Okay.
Very well done. Some of these are a bit bigger. The one in Chichen Itza looks like a fucking soccer field. Really? It's very, very large. And they will either have sloped walls to either side of the court, or completely vertical walls. Depends on the place. Depends on the style of the game. I kind of think of it as like beer pong, where it's like we have our house rule. Like the normal like default rules are the same everywhere, but then we like to play it this way. We have all these little specific nuances, right?
If you lose, you have to go under the court and you have to stay there naked to the next game.
So on either wall is a kind of installed up in the air on the wall is a stone hoop.
Okay.
And we'll talk about that hoop. It's fascinating. Of course, this is a spectator sport, so there's going to be some stands.
Okay.
Nothing like stadium size. We're not talking Dallas Cowboys here.
Okay.
But you can fit a good amount of people. But it wasn't something that everybody in the city came and watched.
It was not.
It was not.
Oh.
It was more like...
So it's not like a Roman spectacle kind of thing.
Not really. I mean, it is a game for everybody, for the people. It's a people's game.
Yeah.
But you're not... It's kind of like invite only, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Classic.
Yeah, for specific people.
Pickleball.
It's exactly like pickleball.
Thank you, Alex.
It's more like pickled jalapeno ball.
Okay.
If you'll pardon the pun.
I will not.
So here's something interesting, Casey. All these courts were built in the religious districts of the cities they're in.
Okay, yeah. This is what I had kind of picked up on.
Tell me what you know.
That it was like a cultural, religious institution where they didn't just do it because they're like, hey, let's go out and like have a good time. You get your friends together, high five, split up into darks and lights, and just go play a game. It was much more like almost evil versus good.
Totally.
Like on a religious level. And it had to do with their culture, understanding like how those two forces interact.
Absolutely. As we know, a lot of Mesoamerican cultures put a lot of importance on the solar cycle.
Yes, yeah. Accomplished astronomers.
Yes. So there's a lot of, like you said, light and dark and moon and sun and heavens and underworld metaphors happening in these games.
Love this.
Built around them, you're going to find a lot of temples, and they were built there for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Of course, you and some buddies might get together and kick the rubber ball around.
Yeah.
It can be recreation, but in the stadiums that we have now in ruins weren't the kinds of places where like, hey, come on, it's the yellow dragons and the green iguanas. Let's have a nice game, everybody.
Love those.
It was like, this shit's important. We need to go to this big stadium.
Yeah, okay.
So here's the rules of the game, Casey.
Oh, geez, we know the rules?
We know the rules. 2 teams.
Okay.
Now, there's a big asterisk next to all this.
Yeah.
It's that this is a brief overview of like a generalized... I'm smearing the paint of several different kinds of regional...
Yeah, okay. All right, sure.
...rules and stuff. But this is a general idea.
Okay.
2 teams. 5 to 8 players each.
Okay.
Maybe you even do doubles.
Okay.
You're facing off against each other on this court, and you have a solid rubber ball. A solid rubber ball.
Yeah, which means it's got to be heavy.
It's heavy.
That's like a tire.
Yes, and it hurts when it hits your body.
Yeah.
This is not like a soccer ball that has filled with air and can fly along with. You have to
Feels
put
more like
some...
a lacrosse ball.
Totally, like a big lacrosse ball. You have to put some weight into it. Points can be scored a few different ways, and again, regional differences. But here are some ways that you can score a point.
Okay.
Your opponent hits the ball out of bounds. You score a point.
Okay. Easy.
You land the ball in your opponent's end zone.
Okay.
You score a point.
The end zone is there?
Or just as long as it hits the ground over there.
Okay.
So the end zone is like the crosses on the capital I, the top and bottom shelf,
okay.
right?
Gotcha. Yeah. Wait, so that's serif.
No, this is... a capital I... Okay.
Jeez, Alex, this is why I asked this question earlier.
You can have... It's not... Sometimes there are special markers on the ground. Like in chalk, they'll draw like try to get the ball in here.
Okay, yeah, gotcha.
You hit that, win a point. Now, very important way to win a point is to shoot the hoop.
I was going to say, that's what I thought you would have to do. That would be my only thought of how you score a point.
Now, it's kind of a special thing.
Okay.
Shooting the hoop also ends the game, by the way.
Oh, really?
So if you're ahead and you want to be like, let's end this fucking thing now.
Okay.
Shoot that hoop, and try to get it in there. And then now the hoop is not big.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of breathing room between the ball and the rim of the hoop.
Okay, yeah.
The hoop is essentially the hole in the hoop is essentially just a couple centimeters bigger than the ball.
Kind of sounds like a basketball hoop where like you got to get it almost perfectly spot on.
Totally.
Or else it's not going to go in.
Yeah, it's not like a soccer goal where you're just like,
yeah, you got all
get
the
it
room in the
through
world.
this wide margin. You might be thinking to yourself, okay, well, that sounds fucking impossible
Sounds hard.
to hit a small rubber ball into a small hoop. It's very high up.
Yeah.
It's on a wall where you like a school bell. Like you cannot reach it. It's very small. There's a lot happening. You can, and the big thing that am now going to mention, you cannot use your hands or feet.
See, that's where I'm like, I don't know about this.
Why?
Because like I've read you use your hips.
Yes.
But how can you like that is so hard. Like it's like
yes.
impossibly challenging to get any purchase direction
Yeah.
force on a ball with just your hips.
There is no catch, Casey. These people were just using their hips.
That's obscene.
You got to watch videos of it. It's
Okay.
wild.
Have you watched a video where they score
Yeah.
with their hips?
Sure, yeah.
I hate this. That just can't be real.
They have very strong, I guess, hips.
They must, yeah, clearly.
So you're knocking the ball back and forth. You're trying to score points. Game ends when you hit it through the hoop.
You get through the hoop.
Yep.
Okay.
Or you could just say, okay, let's be done.
So then does the other team get all their heads sacrificially lopped off?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
So there is a misconception that sacrifices at the ends of these games where like every game ends with a huge mass sacrifice.
Okay.
Not the case.
Okay.
This was only for special occasions.
Yes. Okay. We're about to invade the other country, so we're going to kill a couple people here.
Totally,
a couple
yeah.
people there. It's going to be fun.
So I read that
It's like a Dothraki wedding.
yes, a Dothraki wedding without at least a couple of deaths is a dull affair.
It's a dull affair.
So the paradigm at the time was that the machinery of the world, I've read that term used, ran on blood.
Oh.
The life force, right?
Yeah.
So you want to, they're sacrificing to keep the lights on, Casey.
Wow.
It's very important. Like you can't not do it.
That's the most intense thing I've ever heard. Like the machinery of the world runs on blood.
Yeah, yeah. It's very special.
That's rough.
So who gets sacrificed at the end of the game? You have some options.
Yeah, are we asking Oprah or
What?
you get sacrificed and you get sacrificed and you get sacrificed and you get sacrificed?
No.
Okay.
I mean, you could do that if you were the manager of the game, I guess.
Okay.
But if you're putting on a game, you got a couple options. The losing team.
Okay. You got a couple options. Ooh, let's see. Who do I want to sacrifice today?
Take a look at our menu. The captain of the losing team.
Okay.
The winning team.
Yeah, you're not out of the woods here.
Or the captain of the winning team.
Okay.
And this was like, hey, great job.
It was a bit of an honor.
Guess what? We're going to feed your blood to the gods.
And you're going to keep the machine working.
Yes, that's a huge deal.
Man, that's so Matrix.
Very hardcore. Or just like everybody or nobody,
Yeah, so it was pretty much just dealer's choice at the end. Who's going to get what?
Pretty much.
Comeuppance.
And it
for the
depended
better
on the
machine.
game. Like
Yeah.
maybe you're having it, a big thing was to have them on the equinoxes.
Yeah, okay.
So big, important game. You designate one player from each team to symbolize the sun and the moon.
What?
And at the end of the game, they both die.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so insane.
Yeah, pretty hardcore.
Oh my God, yeah.
So that is the ball game. I fit in one more a Casey Clapp fun fact.
Oh
a
yeah,
prologue
please.
fact.
I love this. Well, wait till after we review it, Alex.
Oh, okay, I'll do that.
No. You can do it whenever.
All right. I'll do it
That's
right now.
classic, Casey.
So I read this thing about gambling during the
Yes, I have also heard about that.
lots of betting on these games
Which I love.
with remarkably high stakes. So a lot of people who attended these would be nobles.
Yeah.
If a noble visiting from out of town, you hold a ball game
Yeah.
in their honor or whatever. So they're betting the usual stuff: money,
Yeah.
jewels,
Okay.
fine clothing, slaves,
Yeah, the usual stuff back then.
mistresses. If you win this game, you can fuck my girlfriend.
Wow.
And there are even references to kings betting parts of their territory.
That is so sick.
Which I thought was so incredible. Like,
I just love that idea.
this is the most important game of your life.
Man, okay, could you imagine Trump doing that? Like, all right. I bet Oregon and Washington that I can kick your ass.
On a hand of poker.
Exactly. But who would be playing against? Well, it's got to be Putin, which means it's Oregon, Washington versus Crimea.
Jesus.
Sorry. All my jokes these days are just going to get more and more nihilistically political.
You're over politicized.
Sorry, Alex. Sorry, you're right.
So that's the game, Case.
Honestly, I love that. All right. I bet you that mountain over there.
Yeah, literally.
That the sun is going to win.
We have a bunch of coal mines.
Yeah.
I'll bet you the coal mines that we win.
That is just so crazy.
Yeah, wild.
Amazing. And that
huge thing.
It's still played today. So like there are people who are still practitioners.
Yes, there is a man named Armando Osorio.
Okay.
He is from Hidalgo in Mexico. This man is spearheading this big cultural movement in Mexico to get people to play the Mesoamerican ball game.
Yeah, and I'm sure because they also are huge fans of soccer. So I bet you another means of using that same kind of style of play. Just
totally.
Now you can't use your feet. I hate that.
Yeah.
I gotta see it. I gotta see this. I gotta see this.
Well, I'll show you a video later, Casey. It's pretty incredible. The athleticism is like superhuman.
It's got to be off the charts.
Here's a quote from Armando about why he plays the game.
Okay.
He says, "When I play, it's not me playing. When I play, I surrender my body so that the energy of my ancestors could manifest physically in this plane."
Wow, that's sick.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It's so good.
All comes from a tree.
That's right.
That's what's most important.
So they're trying to get this popular enough to have like a professional league in Mexico.
Yeah. I'm sure that it'll make its way there.
It's growing and growing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
There you go. That's the Mesoamerican ball game.
Well, all right. Then that is just so interesting that they like gave so much, I don't know, cultural weight to this game and like how it got involved like that. Like, and how do you even develop that ball to begin with? You know, like
right.
They had to just been messing around with things and then figure out this thing that they're like, whoa, look at that. I wonder what, Alex, the like with their kind of socio-religious idea that like you said, the blood, the machinery of the world runs on blood.
Yeah.
Do you think they thought the same thing from trees? Like when they cut into it? Because in order to tap it, you do this like half spiral down the tree.
Yeah.
And then all the sap comes out.
Yeah, you're kind of skinning it.
Not even skinning it. No, you're just like cutting into it and then letting the blood curl down.
Wow.
And then you collect it. So it makes me wonder, like, did that have something to do with it as well? Like the ball itself was like the blood of this tree?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that's a great theory, Casey.
I wouldn't be surprised.
The only thing, like we discussed this and it's like, wow, that is so culturally significant.
Yeah.
It's like there's nothing like that today. And then you think about like college football in the South.
Oh, yeah.
And these productions that they put on, it's like gladiatorial.
Super Bowl was just a couple weeks ago, right?
Oh, yeah, sure. And there's jets flying over. And, and they sing the national anthem. 10,000 people sing the national anthem. And it's like, these gladiators down in these players become like superstars overnight. They make millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
I would say like to scale, it's probably about the same.
Yeah, I'd say you're probably right. I think the thing that really puts it on a different level for me is like the fact that it becomes more of a like, however this works, we're making sure like our religion, our culture will not function without this.
Yeah.
And like the auspices and things like this that the Romans, the Greeks, the ancients used to use in Europe before warfare. They're like, we can't go to war. The guts of the goat aren't quite right right now.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's crazy that these like this amount of, I don't know. There's just this amount of cultural weight was put into something like that.
Yeah.
But I think you're exactly right. Like culturally, football, basketball, all of our sports are huge.
Pretty much, yeah.
But I just think it's interesting in this regard where they're like, this is huge, but it's like religion as well.
Yeah. And it's also, I mean, they also used it to settle debates.
Yeah.
Like I know you stole turkeys out of my backyard.
I know you did.
I fucking know it. No, I didn't. They were there when I woke up this morning.
All right, let's have a ball game.
Yeah, whoever wins the ball game gets to keep the turkeys. Fuck you.
That's so cool. I wish we should do that more often.
That's just an example. I also wish we would do that more often. Play a game of ping pong for some turkeys.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Casey, we got to give a rating to this rubber tree. We got to do so after a quick break. We will be right back with Completely Arbortrary. Welcome back. Welcome the hell back to Completely Arbortrary.
It's extremely aggressive.
Oh, sorry. That was our discussion of the rubber tree. It's time for our review. And here's how it works. We're going to give some final thoughts on this tree. And I think we should also give a review to latex.
Okay.
And then give it a rating of 0 to 10 golden rubber Mesoamerican ball game balls.
Of honor.
Of honor.
Okay.
Casey, as our resident expert, we'll begin with you.
All right. So, I think it's a pretty cool tree.
Yeah.
Because of what it does. The tree itself, honestly, whatever. Don't really care.
Totally.
It's fine.
Yeah.
I will say, the other species that are much more commonly grown, like plantation style, they are all over the place. That's the legitimate rubber tree.
The Ficus elastica or whatever?
No, Hevia brasiliensis.
Oh, Hevia. Okay.
Yes. So that's the one that's usually planted. But if you just walk into the forest next to these plantations, you'll find the ancient version of the rubber tree, which is not used near as much, but it's still native. It grows all over the place in Central America, and actually quite a few other places. It's been planted and escaped cultivation in not more than one place.
Wow.
Not a few places.
Not less than a few places.
Yes, thank you, Alex. You can see me look up and be like, what am I trying to say right now?
Okay.
Anyway, so it's a pretty cool tree in the sense that I like what it does, and I like how it creates this unique thing, which I should note. The whole reason that they create this sap in the first place is just a big defense mechanism.
Oh, sure,
Like, block up wounds and keep things out. Yeah, so I think that this is, I think it's a unique tree for what it does and how we use it. The tree itself, though, honestly, it doesn't really do anything for me. It's got utility, everything. Even the fruit is kind of weird, but, it doesn't really jump out at me. So I'm going to give the whole tree, because that's my job, 6.7. I'm sorry.
Ooh.
It's just fine. It's just fine. I want buttressing roots. I want epiphytic growth. I want some wacky relationship with something that isn't humans.
Well, I'm sorry, but you can't always get what you want.
I know.
But if you try sometime, you just might find that you get what you need.
I think you're right, man.
What
No
you
one's
need
ever
is
put it like that before.
What you need is a fucking hole in the head after that score.
Wow. Thank you.
I was trying to use that phrase. I need a hole in the head.
Oh, yeah. We're not getting our metaphors, our words of slang today very well.
Abraham Lincoln, I need to see this play like I need a hole in the head.
We're going to the play, Abe. Fine. So I think that's cool. The ball game itself, because I'm dubious and I need to watch it, I'm going to give it only a 10.10 out of 10 because...
Wow, 10.10. Good scores, Kate. Well, no,
Yeah.
I mean, they're yours. They're your cones.
Appreciate that.
They're your own.
Thank you.
Okay, so...
Yeah, where are you at?
This might be shocking to you.
Uh-oh.
I'm kind of in accordance with you on the tree as a tree.
Okay.
I think it's just fine.
I'm not shocked about that.
Nothing about it is, makes me happy. Except...
So if Marie Kondo came in here and was like, what do you feel about this tree? You'd be like, get it out.
Yep.
Okay.
Put it in the dump pile.
Okay.
However, nothing about the mango tree makes me extremely happy except for the mango itself.
Except for the mango.
It's not like I'm going around picking mangoes. I buy them at a grocery store and I bring them home and I make delicious mango things, including raw mango.
Okay.
I gave the mango a 10.
I'm going to make raw mango.
Would you guys like some raw mango?
I made it myself.
In Japan. It's safe. I gave the mango a 10.
You did.
I think this Mesoamerican ball game is one of them. Just reading about it, I've been on a bit of a history kick, especially ancient history. This is certainly ancient history and modern day history.
It's very true.
I love it. And I think it's so fascinating that in some places in the world, we just have these resources that put a certain people ahead or like give access. It's like unlocking this special area of the skill tree. Like now you have access to balls and rubber shoes, mats and whatever you want to make out of this stuff. How special is that? And then the tribes here in the Pacific Northwest, they didn't have those trees, so they used other things, right? And they got access to things that the indigenous people of Mexico did not have access to. I just love thinking about that stuff. Doesn't any of that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
You kind of know what I'm saying?
Yeah, where you kind of are given the resources and materials that you get. Yeah. And then these people in these different places figure out how to use them to essentially survive and thrive. Do very well.
And they can make stuff that other people in the world can't. Because they have access to the rubber tree.
Totally. And they design it per what they need and what they have.
And those resources and the discoveries following them inform their culture and their religion and their entertainment. Like, I just think that shit is so fascinating. I had such a fun time reading about it and watching these videos about it. Long-winded way of saying 9.5.
9.5.
I want to go 10, but you can't eat rubber.
You can't eat rubber, and you can't really eat this fruit. It's not a delicious mango-like fruit.
10s are reserved for the delicious.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. That is incredible to me.
There you
go. I love this.
That was the rubber tree.
Wow. And this is, again, Castilla elastica. Castilla. Not any other kind of species.
Yes. Rubber tree is a very generic term.
It really is.
Casey, it is time for our Completely Arbitrary AMA. Ask us anything. And if you want to ask us anything, become a Treemium member at arbitrarypod.supercast.com and join up there to support the pod and get lots of cool things in return.
A lot of cool stuff.
This week, we've got one from Jesse.
Hi, Jesse.
Hey, Jesse. Jesse starts with, hello, favorite podcast duo.
Oh, Jesse, you're just buttering me up.
You're just buttering my biscuits. I was listening to the recent episode on the Banj. Casey mentioned that he knew of a couple LA trees that he plans to see. And it got me wondering, how does he know? How do you find out about where cool trees are? Do you have any cool resources? And has Casey done a vacation around a tree? Yes, he has.
Yes, of course he has.
And then Jesse goes on to say some very, very nice things, and even says that Jesse shares a birthday with me, January 20th.
What? That's fabulous. All right. Well, thank you for all the nice words, Jesse.
TTFN Jesse. Casey, what do you think? If you want to just see some interesting, unique, cool trees, how do you hear about them? Where do you find information about them?
This is a great question. Well, most of the time I ask people, and specifically for the Banj, it's an oak tree that grows at medium to high elevations, so it could conceivably be planted at lower elevations where it is colder, like the Pacific Northwest.
Okay.
I happen to know people that work at a nursery called Sistis Nursery, Sean and Preston.
That's right.
They're involved with the International Oak Society. They're heavily involved in that group. Okay. So they have led tours throughout the United States and northern Mexico. And so I reached out and said, hey, you ever heard of this tree? And immediately Sean's like, oh, of course, we got a couple at the garden, and there's some really big ones down in LA. And that's how I learned about it.
Well, if you're not friends with people who are in the know, if you just want to go see some cool trees in your area, how about heritage trees?
Yeah.
Are heritage trees a common thing in most cities?
You know, they are just of different terms and levels of kind of prominence, I would suppose. So most of the time, like in Portland, we have big, beautiful trees that we've designated as heritage trees. Yeah. There are other places that have big trees that they call heritage trees in a less kind of, I don't know, judicial sense, where they're just like, this is an old tree. It's a tree of heritage.
The community decides that this is a community.
Yeah, exactly. But there's no real designation. There's no real protection, anything like that. Portland has both those things.
Okay.
But then there's also often trees in arboreta and in botanic gardens and things like this across the whole world. So often if I am just Googling a tree or reading about it on something, especially the conifer database, they have, or the gymnosperm database, they have unique specimens that they talk about all the time. They say, there's these trees in this place, there's that tree in this place, I measured this tree, or there's a photo of a tree and he says, this is from this particular place that I went to. So a lot of times it's just kind of osmosing these things from different places. Or like the Munns oak, that's just the one thing that's right over there. And we're like, okay, great, there it is. I know exactly where that tree's at, and I can go find it if I need.
Okay.
Yeah. So
there are probably also some like social media accounts that are like,
yeah,
look at this specific tree.
Yeah, exactly. Like everyone will share their particular locations for some interesting trees. You just got to kind of dig around a little bit.
Cool.
But I definitely recommend, if you know someone who's into trees, nursery people are great examples, or anyone who's in a curation situation at a botanic garden or something like that. They usually have the beta on some really interesting trees in certain spots.
Well, thank you, Jesse. And like I said, if you've got a question for the podcast and want to support the podcast, become a Treemium member over at arbortrarypod.supercast.com. We would love to have you.
We would.
Hey. Casey Clapp.
I'm sorry. We also got shirts.
Seems to be a bit of a laugh.
Oh, Jesus Christ. We have shirts for sale.
That's right.
Go buy a shirt.
Yeah, we'll have blasted this out all over the place. That sounds weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have a brand new.
That's why we cover this entire apartment in latex, so it doesn't actually get all over everything.
It's like Dexter in here.
We have long sleeve Metasequoia shirts.
That's right. They're incredible.
We want you to have them on you.
We would love for you to have one on you. And that happens at arbortrarypod.com/merch.
That's right. You can also buy a hat made by our friend SJ.
Yep.
You can also buy other shirts that we have made by Tori Gorham or Leanne Flug.
That's right.
We also have stickers for sale.
And patches.
Whatever you want. It's arbortrarypod.com/merch.
However you want to rep the podcast. We got to wait for you to do it.
We sure do.
Unless you want a mug. Sorry. Casey Clapp.
Alex Crowson, another well done job.
Yeah, great chatting with you today.
Thank you. You too.
God, I'm so awkward.
No.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Completely Arbortrary. We will see you next time. Goodbye.
Completely Arbortrary is hosted by Casey Clapp and Alex Crowson.
Our music is by Aves and the Mini Vandals, and our artwork is by Jillian Barthold.
To support the podcast and get rewards in return, become a Treemium member at arbortrarypod.supercast.com.
Thanks for listening.